Woody jumped back with a start, fearful that a bush, which could talk, may also be capable of inflicting some sort of harm to a person who was about to go pulling its branches around. Chapter 13. A Secret from Unwelcome Trespassers. Having walked for a while, Evan commented on the fact that he'd never been this far upriver before. "Me neither," added Woody. Evan looked at his young self, who looked back, wondering why his elder self was staring at him in such a fashion. "What?" he asked, and still Evan just looked. "Oh yeah, of course." As they were walking, Woody began to feel a longing in his mouth and a voice in his head. It was his sweet tooth calling out to be fed. "Sugar," it said, "you need some sweets. Those pastils inside your canvas bag will do the trick. They go down a treat. Just reach in and get them. After all, it's energy, and I think you may need a little extra today." His sugary urge tried to convince him, as though he needed to justify a reason to eat some sweets. "Would you like a sweet?" Woody asked of himself, the elder. "No, thank you. I don't really eat sweets." "Eh? What? Don't eat sweets?" Woody was now feeling as though becoming an adult may have some drawbacks that he did not like the sound of. "It's just one of the many changes that—" Evan paused. He was going to say, "growing up brings." Then, thinking that the youngster may be offended at the implication of immaturity, he finished off the sentence with, "becoming an adult seems to bring." Undeterred, Woody peeled back the wrapper to expose the line of sweets, and again offered them up to Evan. "Oh, look, fruit pastils. I haven't seen any of those since I was your age," said Evan, placing two of them into his mouth at once. Woody allowed himself a self-satisfied smile, then speaking half to the man and half to himself, said, I knew you couldn't resist, trying to tell me I don't eat sweets when I'm older." Having eaten most of the pastils since Evan took some, the boy, now down to his last two, gave a sideways glance in the direction of Fate, wondering whether to offer his final treats to what was, after all, a stranger. "Anyway, he probably doesn't eat sweets either," he argued with the small amount of self-reprimand that was trying to make itself heard. On seeing that Fate was looking elsewhere, he hung back a little and popped the last two pastils into his mouth. Having fallen behind the others in order to finish the sweets, his secret silence, Woody then quickened his pace to catch them up. They were now parting company with the river, as it was veering off to the right, and Fate was leading them along a track which was bending away to the left. At first the track was barely visible, as it was overgrown with bracken. The boy wondered if the bracken was bent over in order to hide the track and keep it a secret from unwelcome trespassers. Then all of a sudden, one of the pieces of bracken, not one of the small green ones, but an elderly tall one, all red and important looking, appeared to notice that the party of three was being led by Fate, and quickly gave the order to let them through. All of the bracken parted and stood up straight. Even the baby bracken, which was tiny and curly, tried its best to stand to attention while Fate, Evan and Woody walked through. Fate glanced back and noticed the distant expression on Woody's face. Instinctively he knew what the youngster was doing and approached him. He told the boy that one of the things which is important on this journey and will help you get through it is having a strong imagination. It is a desirable quality and will help you greatly in your future, but you must be able to believe that anything is possible. Further, Having such a vivid imagination that one gives life to Bracken is not only acceptable on this journey, but is quite desirable. On first meeting Fate, the youngster had wondered whether he liked his new acquaintance, and had faked to smile, whereas now it seemed as though this person with the strange name and Woody himself were going to get along rather nicely. As they walked along the track, it began to change into a path, then the path changed to a lane, and the lane then became a road. All the while they were walking, the sun was shining down and had made the youngster rather thirsty. He remembered about the cherry aid in his bag. "There's not much left," he said to himself as he held the bottle up in front of him. "Barely a swig each." He hoped that they would both refuse an offer of a drink. "Want a drink of what?" he croaked, trying to sound even thirstier than he was. Heaven politely refused the offer on seeing the look of desperation on Woody's face. Fate, on the other hand, had a different idea, and took the bottle from the boy, saying as he did, "Yes, please, I could do with a drink." Having twisted the lid off, he gulped down the entire contents, bubbles and all. Woody was furious, and was of the mind to ask Fate just who he thought he was. "Now then," said Fate, handing back the empty bottle, "let that be a lesson to you." "What lesson?" "In future, learn to share things with your friends. I would not have needed to drink any of the pop if you'd have given me a fruit pastel. Just one, but oh no. Being friends is all about sharing. Friendship implies equality. Just have a think about that." Fate turned and began walking up the road again. Evan began to follow, feeling a little uncomfortable, whilst the youngster began to mumble something under his breath about being thirsty and it being Fate's fault. After a few more minutes of walking, Fate stopped and turned to face the boy. He held out his hand to him and asked the question, "Friends?" Woody was still annoyed and wanted to reject Fate's olive branch, but he could see that his older self was watching, and he did not want to alienate his newly acquired friend by appearing immature. When he looked into the eyes of Fate, he realized that trying it on with him was not an option. And when he looked deeper into this new fellow's eyes, he could see that friendship and kindness were waiting to make his acquaintance. Once more, Fate asked him if they were friends. The youngster could not resist smiling back, and he took the proffered hand. "Friends," he said, "I was pleased to say so." He then apologized for being greedy, and was about to explain how sharing things, when you mostly have nothing, was not something which was familiar to him. But then Fate broke the boy's train of thought. He reached inside one of his pockets of his pants, a deep pocket with a long zip, and then withdrew a carton of lemonade, from which they drank deeply until all three thirsts were quenched. As Evan watched Woody finishing off the final drops of juice, he could not help but feel hopeful about their future. He was impressed by the way in which Fate had dealt with his young self, and pleased with how quickly the boy had changed his mindset. After the lemonade and the boy's first lesson were finished, they began walking up the road again. They soon came to a set of crossroads, with each of the 4 roadside walls bearing a nameplate with a choice of destination. "Now then, let me see," said Fate. "Which way shall we go? Perhaps one of you could choose a destination." He then suggested, "Why not let the boy decide?" "Me? Me? Why me? Why should I have to choose?" Woody asked, looking first at Evan and then at Fate, feeling far too young and inexperienced to make such an important decision. "You need to understand that you have a mind of your own," Fate assured him. you are quite capable of making decisions for yourself. It's about time you stop being influenced to make the wrong choices by people who only have their own best interest in mind when they are telling you what to do and what to think. Faye moved up close to the boy in order to place emphasis on his next statement. You do not have to do something just because somebody else tells you to, especially when you instinctively know that it is wrong. Faye then imparted one final piece of information to really send the message home. Scooby and his brother are not your friends. Faye left the message to be absorbed and then suggested once more that the youngster should choose the road along which they would travel. The boy was surprised at having had so much trust placed upon his young shoulders, and he felt, for a pleasant change, as though he had been treated like an adult. So, it's my choice, and wherever I pick is where we will go. Wherever you pick, Fate assured him. Woody was unsure which way to choose, but Edward had his eye on one of the signs which read, "To the past." He had at first the intention of giving the youngster some encouragement, but as he moved forward, Fate intervened and reminded him that the boy had to learn to think for himself. It is important for you to realize that the younger he learns to use his own initiative, the sooner it will benefit you. Right, yes, I get that, realised Evan, and so he stepped back and left the decision up to Woody. Not knowing what lay down any of the roads, the boy really had no idea which one was the best direction to choose. Nonetheless, he looked at one sign and then another, exercising his newfound status as a leader with the right to choose, rather than actually trying to pick out a destination. One of the road signs which he looked at read, "Road to Nowhere." I can't see the point in going down there, he thought to himself, thus eliminating one of his choices. He started moving his head from side to side in an attempt to see one of the signs, which was partially covered over by the branches of a bush. Regardless of how much he tried, he could only make out the words, "Road 2." So he walked over to the sign with the intention of pulling back the bush in order to read the rest of the words. "Good choice, young man. No finer choice could you have made than this particular road," enthused a voice from behind the bush. Woody jumped back with a start, fearful that a bush, which could talk, may also be capable of inflicting some sort of harm to a person who was about to go pulling its branches around. He then stepped back into the safety of Fate and Evan. With Woody's active imagination and all the events that had already occurred, it was hardly surprising that Woody thought it was the bush talking. It wasn't, as he was about to discover.